Rob Reiner was a beautiful boy. I knew him when he was just Meathead, just Archie Bunker's loudmouthed son-in-law. I watched him become a king, and I watched the courtiers, all those powerful, brilliant men, stand around his throne and wring their hands while the kingdom burned. This isn't a story about a son. This is a story about a silence, a conspiracy of silence made of the finest material, good intentions. Let me take you to a luncheon. The Beverly Hills Hotel, 2 years ago. The Polo Lounge. The usual suspects. Norman Lear, Mel Brooks, Carl, God rest his soul, was still with us then, and me. Rob's godparents. His artistic conscience. He called us his board of directors. Rob arrived late. He looked curated. His smile was too wide, his laugh a beat too quick. He ordered a salad and didn't touch it. He kept checking his phone under the table. Norman finally put a hand over Rob's. "Robbie, look at me. It's an hour. The world won't end." Rob's eyes filled with, just like that, in the middle of the Polo Lounge, surrounded by the clink of good silver. He whispered, "You don't understand. If I don't answer, he punishes Michelle." We all went still. The air left the room. Carl, his own father, turned ashen. Punishes? What does that mean, Rob? And Rob, the man who argued with presidents, who took on studios, looked at his father with the eyes of a scared child. It means he takes it out on her, Dad. He yells. He breaks her things. He follows her from room to room. It's easier if it's just me. That was the moment. The clear, bright, undeniable moment. We all saw it. We all heard it. And what did we do, his wise elders? His board of directors? Norman said, "We have to get you a lawyer who specializes in this." Mel said, "I know a guy, a tough guy, who can have a talk." Carl just wept. And me? I said, "Robbie, you come stay with me tonight. Bring Michelle. My house is a fortress." He patted my hand. "Thanks, Auntie Rita, but I can't." He'd burn the house down looking for us. We offered solutions, not salvation. We offered Band-Aids for a gut wound. And when he refused our Band-Aids, we accepted it. We went back to our iced tea. We became part of the silence. We were his moral compass. And we pointed him straight into the storm because we didn't have the courage to grab the wheel. Now let's talk about the women. Everyone wants the story from the Titans. Hanks, Crystal, Sorkin, the fixers. Where were the women? We were in the trenches. Michelle and I had a code. She'd text me a single emoji, a sunflower. That meant, "I'm alone for an hour. He's asleep out, gone. Call me." And I would call. And for 59 minutes, we wouldn't talk about Nick. We'd talk about art, about the Chicano muralists I loved, about a new recipe for arroz con pollo. We'd talk about living. We were building a tiny, soundproof room in the middle of hell, and we'd meet there by phone. One day, she didn't answer after the sunflower. I called again. Nothing. I called Rob. He answered on the first ring, his voice tight. "She's fine, Rita. She just dropped her phone in the pool." I knew he was lying. I got in my car. I drove to Brentwood. I pounded on the door. Nick answered. He was smiling. "Well, look who it is. The original EGOT. You here for an autograph?" I looked past him. Michelle was sitting on the stairs, perfectly still, holding a bag of frozen peas to the side of her face. Her eye was already swelling shut. "I slipped," she said, her voice a monotone. "On the patio." I looked at Nick. I didn't say a word. I just looked, and his smile faded. For a second, I saw it. Not a monster, but a shamed little boy. A boy who knew he'd been seen by Rita goddamn Moreno. I took Michelle's hand. "You're coming with me." I turned to him. I am 5'2". I was looking up at him, and I said, "I wasn't talking to you." I took her to my house. She stayed for 3 days, and on the third day, Rob came to get her. He begged her. He said Nick was sorry. He said Nick was crying. He said it would be different. And she went with him, because her husband needed her more than she needed safety. Here is the core of the tragedy, the rotten center. Rob Reiner was raised by giants, by Carl, by Norman, by Mel. Men who fought wars, who broke barriers, who used their voices as weapons for justice. They taught him to fight for the powerless, but they never taught him how to fight his own child. They never wrote that script. There's no noble cause in that fight, only shame, and Rob would have chosen death over shame. So when the board of directors met after that Polo Lounge lunch, our failure was absolute. We should have formed a phalanx. Norman, Mel, Carl, me. We should have marched into that house, taken Rob and Michelle by the arms, and physically removed them. We had the moral authority. We were his elders, his heroes. But we were old, and we were tired. And we thought, he's a grown man. He has to make his own choice. That's the luxury of the outsider. Even an outsider who loves you, you get to respect boundaries while someone inside the boundary is being eaten alive. The last time I saw Rob, he was dropping Michelle off after her visit. He looked thinner. He'd always been a big presence, a bear of a man. But he was shrinking, literally, as if the weight was pressing him down into the earth. He hugged me on my doorstep. He held on too long. And he whispered in my ear, "Keep her safe, Rita. However you can." He wasn't talking about that afternoon. He was giving me a mission for the rest of her life. He was appointing me her guardian because he knew he was failing at the job. He was preemptively passing the torch of her protection. It was his surrender. I should have never let him get back in that car. After the news broke, the board of directors met one last time. At Carl's old house, it was just Norman, Mel, and me. The silence was a physical thing. Finally, Norman spoke. "We failed him." Mel said, "We were cowards." I said, "We were his heroes, and heroes are useless in a war where love is the enemy." We sat in the living room where we'd all laughed for 50 years, and we faced the truth. We built a man who believed in justice, but we didn't give him the tools for the one injustice that came from his own blood. We gave him a sword to fight dragons, but no shield to protect him from his own son. So when you ask for the truth, here it is, plain and ugly. We are all complicit, not just the inner circle, the wider circle too. The industry that saw a great man diminish and asked for one more quote, one more fundraiser, one more photo, we all kept taking from a man who had nothing left to give. I will not testify. What is there to say? That I saw a black eye and still let her go back? That I offered a guest room when I should have offered a fortress with a moat? My truth is this: I have spent a lifetime fighting for dignity, for Latinos, for women, for art, and in the most important fight of my life, for the dignity and safety of my two dear friends, I fought with politeness. I fought with luncheons and guest rooms and concerned phone calls. Nick Reiner didn't just kill his parents. He exposed a flaw in all of us who loved them. He proved that even the strongest among us, even the legends, are helpless against a certain kind of evil. Not a grandiose, movie villain evil. A quiet, domestic, smiling evil that lives in the guest room. I'm 81. I have no wisdom to offer, only a terrible, clear-eyed regret. We were his board of directors, and we voted through our silence to approve the destruction of our favorite company. The meeting is adjourned, forever. Let me tell you about the last board meeting, the one we didn't know was the last. It was at Rob's house 6 weeks before the end. Nick was away, at a rehab in Arizona, a brief, beautiful ceasefire. We sat out by the pool. Norman, Mel, me, Rob, Michelle. The sun was set. For the first time in years, Rob's shoulders weren't up around his ears. He laughed, a real laugh from the belly, the one we remembered. We talked about old times, about Carl, about stupid jokes from 1973. Michelle held his hand. She looked peaceful. We all drank a little too much wine. We pretended the war was over. When it was time to go, Rob walked us to the door. He hugged each of us. When he got to me, he held my face in his big hands. His eyes were clear. "I think we turned a corner, Auntie Rita," he whispered. "I think we're going to be okay." He believed it. In that moment, with his friends around him and the temporary peace, he believed in the happy ending. That was the final cruelty. Nick had given him just enough hope to make the fall fatal. As we drove away, I looked back. Michelle was waving from the doorway, silhouetted by the hall light. Rob had his arm around her, a perfect picture. A staged moment of peace from the master director himself. Mel said from the passenger seat, "Thank God." Norman nodded. We all breathed a sigh of relief we'd been holding for a decade. We were fools. We mistaked a retreat for a surrender. Nick came back from Arizona a week later, angrier, more entitled. The bill for his rehabilitation was 6 figures. He presented it to Rob like an invoice. "For services rendered, your hope." The siege resumed, but it was different now. The hope had been a toxin. Now that it was gone, the despair was complete. Rob stopped calling. Michelle's sunflower text stopped. The silence from the house became absolute. The night it happened, I was at home watching an old movie. West Side Story. The irony is not lost on me. I felt a chill, a deep, bone-level cold that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. I got up. I walked to my window. I looked toward Brentwood, though I couldn't see it from my house. And I knew. I didn't get a call. I didn't see a news alert. I knew. The cord had been cut. I called Michelle's phone. It rang and rang. I called Rob's, straight to voicemail. I called the house line. No answer. I didn't call 911. Why? Because I was afraid of being wrong, afraid of causing a scene, afraid of being the old woman who cried wolf. Our greatest, most fatal sin was our fear of embarrassment. So here is my final statement, my closing argument to the jury of public opinion. This was not a family tragedy. It was a systemic failure of an entire community. We were a village, a powerful, glittering, influential village. And we left two of our own to be devoured by a wolf we all saw prowling the gates. We offered advice. We offered money for more rehab. We offered guest rooms. What we did not offer was an intervention of absolute ruthless force. We did not have him committed. We did not hire a team to physically restrain him and take him away. We did not because it was ugly. It was messy. It would have made Rob look bad. It would have been a scandal. We chose the possibility of a quiet scandal over the certainty of a loud, messy salvation, and in doing so, we chose their deaths. Rob's legacy will be debated by film students, but my legacy, Norman's, Mel's, the legacy of his elders, is now this. We saw the fire. We smelled the smoke. We discussed the best brand of fire extinguisher, and we watched the house burn down with our loved ones inside because we were too polite to break down the door. At 81, you see the pattern of your life. The triumphs are bright stitches, but the regrets are the dark thread that holds the whole tapestry together. This will be my darkest thread. So do not ask me for wisdom. Do not ask me for a poignant quote about my dear friend Rob. Ask me about the cost of politeness. Ask me about the luxury of hope when someone is holding a knife. Ask me about the day I saw a black eye and accepted a lie about a patio. That is the truth. It is not a revelation. It is an obituary for my own courage, and it is the only epitaph I deserve.